the haunting voice that mimicked her mother. The darkness of the night hung heavily in the old house, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the creaking wooden floors. In a small, dimly lit room on the second floor, a young girl named Emily lay in her bed, eyes wide open, unable to sleep. The silence was broken only by the faint sounds of the wind rustling through the trees outside. Just as Emily was beginning to drift into a restless slumber, she heard a piercing sound that made her heart skip a beat. It was her mother's voice, calling out her name from downstairs. Startled and slightly disoriented, Emily sat up in bed and rubbed her eyes, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. Feeling a mix of confusion and concern, Emily cautiously left the comfort of her room and made her way toward the staircase. As she descended the steps, the atmosphere grew increasingly eerie. The air turned colder, and an inexplicable feeling of dread settled over her like a shroud. Suddenly, as if sensing the impending danger, Emily's mother appeared at the bottom of the staircase, her face pale and eyes filled with fear. Without a word, she frantically gestured for Emily to come closer. Something was terribly wrong. As Emily hesitated, her mother's grip tightened around her arm, and with an urgency in her voice, she whispered, "Don't go down there, Emily. I heard it too. It's not me calling you." The gravity of her mother's words sent shivers down Emily's spine. Confusion swirled in Emily's mind. If it wasn't her mother calling her, then who or what was it? And why did it mimic her mother's voice with such chilling accuracy? In that moment, a faint whisper filled the air, growing louder and more sinister by the second. It was a voice, but one that carried an otherworldly quality, dripping with malevolence. It seemed to come from all directions at once, echoing through the empty halls of the house. "Emily," the voice hissed, its tone dripping with malice. "Come to me, Emily. I'm waiting for you." Paralyzed with fear, Emily clung to her mother, desperately seeking solace and protection. The voice grew more insistent, its relentless call ringing in their ears. The once familiar house transformed into a labyrinth of terror, its walls seemingly closing in on them. Together, Emily and her mother retreated into their room, barricading the door as best they could. In the suffocating darkness, they huddled together, trying to block out the relentless voice that continued to taunt and lure them. The night dragged on, each passing moment filled with an indescribable horror. Time seemed to lose all meaning as the voice persisted, its ceaseless chant echoing in their minds. The minutes turned to hours, and the hours stretched into an eternity. Just as hope was fading, the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, casting a feeble light into the room. As if sensing the approaching day, the voice gradually receded, its power waning with the rising sun. And then, as abruptly as it had begun, the haunting voice fell silent. Exhausted and traumatized, Emily and her mother cautiously emerged from their room, their eyes heavy with weariness. The house stood silent and still, as if nothing had happened, but the memory of that terrifying night would forever be etched into their souls, a reminder of the unseen forces that can lurk in the darkest corners of our existence. From that day forward, Emily and her mother would never forget the chilling reminder of that malevolent entity, which had sought to prey upon their trust and love. It was a lesson learned in the most horrifying way possible. Sometimes the greatest terrors lie not in the darkness itself, but in the twisted reflections of those we hold dear.